I titled today's conversation mind map, Who You Are Matters, Everything Else Does Not. Who you are matters, everything else does not. And by this it is meant very specifically, you, as in existence, are perfection prior to any thoughts in mind that can suggest otherwise. Any thoughts that suggest otherwise belong to what the Bible refers to as the old man. The old man. The old man is not real. So we could say the old man or the old individual is unreal, not the real man, not the real individual. The real individual consciously uses the two gifts wisely, that were bestowed upon humanity, as stated in the Hermetica. Those two gifts are mind and speech. Mind and speech. Now, unknowingly, and by that it is meant not knowing who you are, that infinite, supreme, absolute perfection, as you also have the ability to think, as in you can think what this information means to you. You can think clearly about any information. So if you read a book, if you listen to a conversation, if you're watching the news, browsing on social media, in relation to any information that is presented, you can choose how to think about that information. James Allen, who wrote the wonderful book As a Man Thinketh, said, "They themselves are makers of themselves by virtue of the thoughts which they choose and encourage. That mind is the master weaver, both of the inner garment of character and the outer garment of circumstance, and that, as they may have hitherto woven in ignorance and pain, they may now weave in enlightenment and happiness." I like how he says that, weave in enlightenment and happiness. You are already that. You are that happiness. You are that peace. You are that love. You are that bliss, that joy, that fulfillment you were seeking for your whole life. You are already that. Weaving in ignorance is to suggest that you are not that. So you desire love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Nothing wrong with you. Knowing who you are, you can really think for yourself. And as you really think for yourself, all these things, as mind is the master weaver, both of the inner garment of character and the outer garment of circumstance, all these things in the mind and outwardly as appearances transform. And that's what I mean by who you are matters, or more specifically, who you really are matters. Everything else does not. What do I mean by everything else does not? See, conditioning in mind that does not accurately represent you as that existence, consciousness, bliss, Satchit, Ananda. Ananda may be translated into bliss, joy, happiness, peace. May be playing out as theater, practically speaking. The individual is interested in manifesting charisma, personal magnetism, attractiveness, have wonderful relationships, etc., etc. They desire the relationships, personal life, business life, friendships. The conditioning that the individual unknowingly, they didn't consciously do it, they just unknowingly identified with conditions, plays out in the body as resistance to starting a conversation, engaging in a conversation, relating harmoniously with another individual. For example, in entrepreneurship, they may be afraid to start a conversation with a prospect. They may be afraid to reach out to an existing client and have a conversation about their experience with their fulfillment. They may be then afraid if they see an opportunity to present an additional product or service. They may be afraid to offer that. They think that they're taking away from the client, disturbing the client, etc., etc. That is an example of weaving in ignorance, unknowingly, the conditioning playing out as theater, the conditioning in mind playing out as theater, as these behaviors. As stated in the Hermetica, 2 gifts, it says gifts were bestowed upon humanity. Those 2 gifts are mind and speech. So the individual has the ability to think. Now the question is, are they really thinking for themselves? Or are they continuously identifying with these conditions? They have a choice. Now, in another one of his works, which I listen to while I run, I enjoy my runs on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, wonderful park. It's actually where I discovered this book. It's called The Heavenly Life by James Allen. It was part of a book called All These Things Added that he had released. He said in there that all things belong to the individual. All these things belong to the individual. And they choose what they have. Today, they choose in ignorance. Tomorrow, they choose in wisdom. So he's saying the same thing. He said it in As a Man Thinketh. He also said it in this book. Today, he chooses in ignorance, and tomorrow, he chooses in wisdom. Not knowing who they are, they replace one condition with another condition and another condition and another condition, looking for that infinite love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. That I that has the ability to think. Not knowing what is prior to that I. That pure awareness, the existence, consciousness, bliss, happiness, peace, joy, is what they were looking for. If someone says, you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, the individual may say, where is it? Where is this love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment? I do not have this physically. And if you ask them, why don't you have it? They point to something which we can say they call a visible cause of their love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Not knowing, unknowingly, the individual thinks it's because of those appearances. You name it. Car, relationship, money. They might think, only when I get that money, only when I get that relationship, only when I get that car, etc., then I can experience love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And as we've been discussing over the years, that is illusory. Why is it illusory? The individual might argue and say, no, it is real. I actually experience love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment because of this car, because of this relationship, because of this money, etc., material possessions. Now, no shame, no condemnation. Nothing wrong with having the wonderful car, the wonderful business. Certainly I teach it. I teach entrepreneurship. I teach having a wonderful lifestyle. I teach in flow-based prosperity, for example, my group coaching and mastermind service. We encourage generating a lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit, number one. Number two, enjoying a wonderful lifestyle while you're generating a lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit. And number three, investing and giving back for future generations, etc., etc. So nothing wrong with them. What is really going on is they are experiencing that love, that happiness, that peace, that bliss, that fulfillment that they really are with those appearances, with the car, with the relationship, with the money, with this, with that, not because of it. And how do I know? Well, let's say today you drive this car and it's in the shop. It's not like you're saying, I lack something. I am not love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment because the car is in the shop. See, the individual really thinking for themselves knows. That's what he meant by weaving in enlightenment and happiness, weaving in wisdom. They know that they are the source of fulfillment, the source of love, the source of happiness, the source of peace, the source of bliss. As I always say, desire, intention, the self, God, fulfillment are one. You are completely fulfilled. That still I am presence is the complete fulfillment of the law. Congratulations. You know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. So you know now, in relation to whatever it is that you experience in the past, in the future, or whenever, which is really experience now, in the eternal now, and thus you can relate to something that happened, or you can relate to something that is about to happen now, in this moment. Now is the only moment that is the eternal fulfillment, the eternal happiness, the eternal peace, the eternal bliss, the eternal love. That is now. So we could say desire, now, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, intention, God, the self are one. Now and always now. That's wisdom. So the individual, knowing who they are, knowing what they have, spontaneously and naturally experiences love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, with or without the appearances. Now, an individual might ask, but I genuinely desire to experience these appearances. The car, the money, the relationship, etc. I desire to manifest personal magnetism, charisma, attractiveness. That's the natural fragrance of being completely fulfilled. Being completely fulfilled. Being completely fulfilled as you are. Existence, fulfillment. Being, fulfillment. Presence, fulfillment. Now, fulfillment. Simply existing as fulfillment, knowing that you are that fulfillment, the natural fragrance, or so it appears that way, is what we can call confidence, charisma, personal magnetism, attractiveness. It naturally happens. That's the natural fragrance. And we can say, oh, how did you go about acquiring that client? How did you go about acquiring that relationship, that business deal, that end result, whatsoever things ye desire? Mark 11:24, pray as though ye have received it. It says received. As in you have it, you are it. Desire, fulfillment, God, the self, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, existence, consciousness, bliss, happiness, joy, peace, ananda, now are one. Thus, existence is enough. So how did it play out? In a way that we can describe, it played out magnetically. It played out charismatically. It played out attractively. All of that naturally happens in flow. And flow is the natural result of being who you are. And being who you are is the natural result of knowing who you are. So, as a result now of knowing who you are, you can clearly see if any thoughts that suggest lack, limitation, not being fulfilled, not being complete, not being whole, you need to do this or that, whatever it may be, in order to have love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, in order to be fulfilled, in order to be whole, in order to be complete. It belongs to the old man, and you are not the old man. You are the real man, or the real individual. So you are not this illusory self. You are the true self. What is appearing, what matters is you. The true self emerges from the heart of awareness. That still I am presence, that is the heart of awareness. That is the perfection. It naturally, spontaneously manifests in flow. As you know, I like to articulate this using this modified version of the Robert Dilts logical levels. There you are on the top. I put the I on the top to represent you. Not to limit you, but to articulate the point. You are that who witnesses all these things in perfect harmony. You witness in and as peace, love, happiness, bliss, joy, fulfillment. So you can call into physical existence whatsoever things you desire. And as you call upon these things, and how do you call upon these things? Mark 11:24, pray as though ye have received it. You imagine yourself already being the individual that you desire to be. You imagine yourself having what you desire. You imagine yourself having the relationship that you desire, the car that you desire, the money that you desire. You imagine yourself already having that which you desire as you have it in imagination. All things exist in imagination. See, the beautiful thing about the subconscious mind is it cannot tell the difference between what is visible through the five senses, what is physical, and what is imagined. The brain can tell the difference. The subconscious mind cannot. Now you have the two gifts, mind and speech. You can, via your inner speech, or as James Allen said, by the thoughts that you choose, you can plant into your subconscious mind. And I just provided the simple way to do it as articulated here in the Robert Dilts logical levels. There you are on the top, existing as infinite perfection, infinite fulfillment, supreme, absolute bliss, love, happiness, peace, joy, for no reason. You exist bliss, joy of simply existing, happiness of simply existing, bliss of simply existing, with or without these appearances. That is you. Yet you desire to experience in form that which is a symbol of that fulfillment. It can sound nebulous if I say to you, you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. The individual, choosing in ignorance, not knowing, unknowingly, as mentioned, choosing in ignorance, the individual thinks that in order to get the love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment that they are, a condition needs to be met. Only then they can experience it. which is illusory. You are already that which you desire to be. You already have what you desire. You choose to experience that which you desire, perfectly fine. It happens naturally and effortlessly, spontaneously in flow. So, the vision on the top here of the pyramid, above that is you. You have a vision. You imagine yourself to be who you desire to be. You imagine yourself to have what you desire, the car, the money, the relationship, etc., whatsoever things you desire. All these things, all these other layers here, transform. You let it transform. That which we can refer to as the personal identity, or in psycho-cybernetics, he calls it the self-image. That self-image transforms. If you form a personal identity or a self-image based on ignorance, or as James Allen said, weaving in ignorance rather than weaving in wisdom, then it generates this kind of behaviors, as I mentioned. If an individual is about to start a conversation with someone that they're interested in, or during a conversation, they're afraid to, there's shame, there's condemnation. This 5 steps, which we're going to explore, dissolves that programming. How great! Reality is rigged in your favor. You desire to have that relationship, you desire to have that money, you desire to have that car, you got it. You have it. Now, you naturally take the steps in flow, whatever they may be. Start the conversation, start the business, ask for the deal, ask for the referral, whatever it may be in flow. You naturally do it. And all these layers appear to transform. The personal identity, the values and beliefs. Why did the values and beliefs transform? Well, they'll transform if they do not represent who you are. If they are what we can refer to as limiting beliefs, restrictive beliefs, fetters, they are released because they do not represent you. They are released in flow. They're released along the way. I can honestly speak from my experience. When I discovered Think and Grow Rich in 2004, he said, set a definite chief aim. That's the vision. You set a definite chief aim. And then along the way, these beliefs of lack, of limitation dissolve. And what naturally emerged from that, and every definite chief aim has been actualized in form, is the realization that I am completely fulfilled. That I am that love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment for no reason. Satchit Ananda. Ananda, peace, happiness, joy, bliss for no reason. The realest of experiences. How great is that? You can walk around. If you're with people, you feel fulfilled. If you're not with people, you feel fulfilled. Not because you're with or without people. You know, there was a time in my life where I would think that I was not fulfilled unless people were around me. I could not be alone by myself because I thought that I was not fulfilled. You see how that's a condition? But no shame and condemnation. That is what James Allen was referring to as choosing in ignorance. So choosing in ignorance would result in, I got to get this person, or I got to get this friend, or I got to get this and get that, or whatever. Then I can be fulfilled. See, choosing in wisdom means you naturally choose what your heart desires. If it's to be in a relationship, great. If it's to not be in a relationship, great. If it is to hang out with someone, great. If it is not to hang out with someone, great. There is no shame, no condemnation. There's no, because of this or that, I need to experience this or that, and then I can experience this love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. No. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment for no reason. Yet, when you do experience it with another individual, you do experience it when you're with yourself. It is unconditional love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And that is what we can call wonderful, harmonious relationship with yourself and with individuals. How great is that? So let's use the 5 steps in psycho-cybernetics to discuss how all these layers transform environments, capabilities, which are skills, behaviors, values and beliefs, personal identity to reflect the vision. They transform along the way without resistance in flow. If there is resistance, that's just identification. That's just identification to the conditioning, as I had mentioned earlier. If the conditioning is playing out as theater, you can no longer identify with that conditioning. Now, that can sound like a force-based thing to do. Not identify with the conditioning, as in forcefully not identify with the conditioning. What happens when you are oriented from the vision? Your attention naturally remains, naturally flows, naturally reveals everything and everyone that is in harmony with your vision. As I always say, in entrepreneurship, relationships, assets, which can include physical, digital, intangible assets, spontaneously and naturally arise to be in harmony. They just spontaneously, naturally arise, and your attention naturally flows onto them. There is no such thing as temptation or distraction in flow. Now, let's say if the individual gets distracted, it's okay. No shame, no condemnation. You let it be. And your attention naturally flows on what is related to your vision. If the conditioning is playing out as theater, you can in the moment no longer identify with it. By weaving in wisdom. How do you weave in wisdom, practically speaking? You do nothing to weave in wisdom, as you are already that pure awareness existing as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. That is what is meant by do nothing or do not identify. You're completely fulfilled as you are. Now, for the individual, this might be new to them. That's okay. I can assure you. It gets easier and easier and easier when we consider what he shared here in psycho-cybernetics. So he said, your built-in success mechanism must have a goal or target. So you have a goal, a target, which is the vision. He said the goal or target must be conceived of as already in existence now, either in actual or potential form, as mentioned. What he refers to as success mechanism, we know that the subconscious mind does not tell the difference between what is visible through the 5 senses that the individual, that the brain considers to be real, and what is imagined. And that is a wonderful thing. So, I am that which I desire to be. I already have what I desire. Number 2, the automatic mechanism is teleological. That is, it operates and is oriented to end results goal. Do not be discouraged because the means whereby may not be apparent. It is the function of the automatic mechanism to supply the means whereby when you supply the goal. You simply supply the goal. That's it. That's all I did. Is I just committed to the definite chief aim. That's it. And that could sound like a force-based thing to do. Commit to the definite chief aim. You are already that which you desire to be. Desire means having. Desire means being. Mark 11:24, pray as though you have received it, and it will be yours. He said, think in terms of the end result, and the means whereby will often take care of themselves. They do. They happen. Some way, somehow. Known ways, unknown ways, not my concern. They happen. So this being discouraged part, because the means whereby may not be apparent is what James Allen is referring to as weaving in ignorance. In other words, not seeing the opportunities that are there already. There is infinite opportunities that are available now. The individual weaving in ignorance doesn't necessarily see them as opportunities, maybe sees them as problems or obstacles. Like, for example, in entrepreneurship, when we do consulting, they bring their marketing challenges, which are opportunities, their sales challenges, which are opportunities, to the discussion. And then we optimize from the infinite ways that are available. We access them through an exploratory conversation, or I may talk about something that I have done that I have seen effective, or one of the thousands of businesses that I've worked with over the years that I have seen them do something that was effective. Provided that it's not proprietary information, we discuss it. And it could be some optimization on their prospecting, lead generation, client acquisition, ongoing business with existing clients, etc., etc. They might have thought that there was no other way. They did whatever they could, which is perfectly fine. And again, the word ignorance is not a shame and condemnation thing. It just means unknowingly, not knowing. So we discover some ways. They move forward with those ways, and they produce results with them. They get the results that they're looking for, or they get some results, and then we look at their results. We optimize based on what steps they've taken, and then they apply that, and they produce results. The numbers increase. So the means whereby may not be apparent. To who? They're always there. To the individual that has experience, they can say, oh yeah, it's there. But if you don't have the reference experience, that's perfectly fine. That does not mean you need to be discouraged. So the individual seeking for the means whereby to be apparent, and then suggest if the means whereby that they interpret as the means whereby are there, then they could be love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. In that moment, dissolve that illusory belief. Why I always teach also be in flow. While in flow, all these things happen naturally. That's what we're talking about here. This is just the natural way of being. Number 3, do not be afraid of making mistakes or temporary failures. What I found is that there are infinite ways, and these so-called mistakes or temporary failures are not temporary failures and mistakes. As he says here, all servo mechanisms achieve a goal by negative feedback or by going forward, making mistakes, and immediately correcting course. What he's saying, if we put 2 and 2 together, if we really think for ourselves, is there's no such thing as mistakes or temporary failures or negative feedback or making mistakes. This is just how it works. Do you know, like, for example, I snowboard. And I've taught snowboarding to my cousin's kids, for example. They have fallen a number of times. And they said, what did I do wrong? I said, nothing. And maybe they know what I mean, maybe they don't, but that's okay. They go back on the run, and their body naturally flows and naturally does what I could have consciously had a conversation about and made up a conceptual diagram, etc., describing how to optimize whatever that was that they were doing. Yet I didn't do that because I knew that the servo mechanism achieves goals through these kinds of performances. That's completely normal. Just like, for example, in business or in relationships, if the individual says, I got rejected, great that you got rejected. And they might say, what do you mean, great that I got rejected? I said, each time the servo mechanism, it's doing its thing. What's the problem? And that illusory belief, again, weaving in ignorance, where they may have thought that there was a problem with them, there was something wrong with them, dissolves. Because they know that they are that perfection in the moment, the eternal perfection in the moment in that regard. So what happens then is they know how to handle the objections. They know how to respond. They know that at times, if the business does not want to move forward with the deal, that later on they may move forward with the deal. For example, in dating, if they ask someone out and the other individual did not respond back or said they're not available, they didn't start thinking that they lack love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. They are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, regardless of appearances. So they let the other individual be, they let themselves be, without trying. They remain in flow. And what happens then is they get a phone call from this individual, and usually I've heard this many times. They also get a comment of how they are attractive or charismatic or magnetic because they didn't try to convince them to come out, force them to come out, because they need them to come out in order to be fulfilled. Number 4, skill learning of any kind, he says, is accomplished by trial and error, mentally correcting aim after an error until a successful motion, movement, or performance has been achieved. After that, further learning and continued success is accomplished by forgetting the past errors and remembering the successful response so that it can be imitated. And this might sound like a lot of things to do. This happens naturally in flow. All I do is, and I have done this since 2004, you commit to a vision, you receive within plans, hunches, inspiration, intuitive step. I just take the step again, again, again. And some of these steps are repetitive steps that turn into habits, and wonderful habits that bear fruit, such as making these videos, such as doing my consulting sessions, such as doing the public speaking events, such as doing the Mondays and Thursday Zoom sessions that we do in the mastermind, which go on sometimes for 4 or 5 hours. And what is happening along the way? Well, the skill, the capability in the Robert Dilts logical levels is refining. The communication skills are refining. They happen naturally. As I always say, in this life, you just appear to become more of who you already are. That's what I meant by who you are matters. Everything else does not. All this illusory conditioning, you don't identify with it, and it does not matter anymore. Literally, as he said, not being afraid of making mistakes, temporary failures, errors, trials, mistakes, forgetting the past errors, all of these things could sound like things to do. I just commit again, again, and again. In a state of flow, I remain in flow, and all these things happen naturally. And you and I are no different. You could do the same as well. I didn't know this information to this degree. As mentioned, I've been studying it for many years. I've been applying it for many years. I've worked with thousands of individuals to implement this for many years. The way I articulate it right now is way more easeful than I articulated it before from personal experience. Yet, as I communicate this, you and I are no different. You are that pure awareness, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, perfection. I am that awareness as well. We are all that pure awareness, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment that we were seeking for our whole lives. And as we realize that, it just unfolds more so through the catalyst of whatever task, project, initiative in relation to the vision. So I don't run away from challenge. As I had mentioned, the G spot, remember that? It's where challenge meets skill, the God spot, as articulated in the book Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. We talked about this last week. I'll link in the description to it. So there's no such thing in flow as making mistakes, temporary failures, errors, course correcting, all of these things, you don't think about these things. There's no worries about these things. You just commit again and again and again. On my other channel where I speak exclusively about entrepreneurship, I talk about this from personal experience of teaching my cousin's kids how to snowboard. That they were on the Black Diamonds in one season. And it's not because I gave them all kinds of lectures and concepts and this and that. They intuitively know this. Children intuitively know this. You're given the two gifts, mind and speech. Unknowingly, the individual keeps filling up the mind with information, stifling the flow. They don't think like that. Now, if they keep this up, they'll not think like that throughout the course. They're teenagers now. So, they just jump on the snowboard, they go down, they fall, they get back up again and again. They ask me a few questions. The next thing you know, they're on the Black Diamonds. Just like that. They don't see it as a problem. There's no such thing as defeat, failure, mistakes, etc. in flow. In a troubling way. Yes, we can call that making mistakes, temporary failures, etc., whatever you want to call it, that. That's just how the servo mechanism works, the creative mechanism, as he says here. Learn to trust your creative mechanism to do its work and not jam it up by becoming too concerned or anxious as to whether it will work or not, or by attempting to force it too much by too much conscious effort. That's it. You just get into the flow and stay in the flow. That's it. Chunk it down. That's the flow access point, as mentioned. The sweet spot where challenge meets skill. If it's too challenging, that's perceived challenge. Chunk it down into small steps, and that's your access point into the flow, where you can, as he said here, let it work rather than make it work. That's a nuanced point. So, in grand summary, you are already that which you desire to be. You have what you desire, not because of this or that physical appearance. You are completely fulfilled. You are that pure awareness existing as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And knowing that you're completely fulfilled, you naturally flow. You have a vision, you flow, and you actualize it. The saying, everything you touch turns to gold. But if it doesn't appear that way, that's okay. The vision serves as a catalyst. The tasks, the projects, the initiatives serve as a catalyst, and it's okay if it's experienced as challenging. The weaving in ignorance is the craving for something to appear in a particular way in order to be fulfilled, which is illusory. As mentioned, fulfillment is experienced with the task, the project, the experience, the initiative, the relationship, the car, the money, etc. And thus then, knowing this, and through this again and again and again repetition, mind is purified, and you experience what you call unconditional love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment during skill cultivation, if it's skill cultivation, during the tasks, during the projects, during the initiatives, during whatever it may be. And all these things that happen naturally as part of, which the individual thought it was a problem because they were seeking for, weaving in ignorance. Again, no shame, no condemnation, as James Allen had said. All things are the individual, and they choose that which they will have. Today they choose in ignorance, tomorrow they shall choose in wisdom. Choosing in ignorance means continuously identifying with the conditions that suggest you are not that which you desire to be, have what you desire. You lack love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and you need it to be appearing in a particular way in order to be fulfilled. That's illusory. That's when the individual tries to make it work, forces to make it work, rather than letting it work the way it is divinely designed to be. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You can say, I know that I am that pure awareness existing as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, from which desires spontaneously arise and are fulfilled in flow as I live how I genuinely desire to live. I have what I genuinely desire to have. Harmonious friendships, harmonious relationships, harmonious business, all these things added unto me with increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive by simply existing as I am, as body appears to flow. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.